And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, a podcast about marital strife, because this week we watched Our Mrs. Reynolds.
Written by the one, the only Joss Whedon.
Directed by, oh shoot, I didn't have the tab ready. I had the tab open, it just wasn't in front of me. Directed by Vondie Curtis Hall.
And aired on October 4th, 2002, as we continue to zigzag between dates here. Probably zigging where we should zag and zagging where we should zig, given the ungodly airing order of this show.
Apparently Vondie Curtis Hall only directs this episode, but is apparently a notable television actor who appeared in numerous films, including Coming to America. I don't recognize any of the others. Will Shakespeare's Romeo plus Juliet. Is that the Baz Luhrmann one? Oh, it is. And apparently he also has a recurring role on Chicago Hope.
I don't know what Chicago Hope is, to be honest.
Show, we had a recurring role, I should say. It was in the 90s.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of the directors for this show are similar to that, where they only direct one episode. In fact, just kind of looking at the list here, that seems to be the case for most of the episodes, I guess, just one-off directors. Obviously, you get Joss Whedon and Tim Minear in the director's seat for a lot of the episodes, too, or a handful.
Wow, he even had a role on Marvel's Daredevil. Weird. He also had a role in a TV show about LAX. I didn't even know a TV show about LAX existed.
Me neither, but just given the chaotic nature of LAX, I can see it.
It's a drama television show set at LAX. Wow, sounds thrilling.
It actually kind of does. Not really. Actually, not really.
I was gonna say I didn't even explain any of the plot to you, so I was like, "What are you basing that on?"
Yeah. Well, speaking of plot, as we were discussing before we started recording, this episode, Our Mrs. Reynolds, is maybe sort of the lightest on like actual events within the episode itself. I think this is maybe actually the most thematically interesting Firefly episode, but in terms of like the actual point A to point B events, there aren't, maybe as many, or they're more maybe, I don't know, character interaction driven or something like that.
There are barely any plot points in this episode, and yet somehow I didn't find myself bored by this episode, which is very impressive. No,
yeah, I mean, I think, kind of like I just said, this is, in my opinion, maybe the most thematically interesting, or maybe it's just like the most didactic and in your face about kind of, what it involves, or like what it's doing thematically or something. It's a confrontation between Mal and what's her face at the end, Saffron.
Saffron.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like, as soon as I started watching the episode, a lot of it came back to me from my previous watch through. Or
this episode of all episodes is the one that came back to you.
Yeah, and I realized, like, going into it, I was like, Our Mrs. Reynolds sounds like an interesting episode, but I didn't connect it at all with like the fact that Mal is named Mal Reynolds. Like it wasn't even. I didn't realize that until I started the episode.
And then you were like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I seem to remember reading that this one was aired quite early, which I guess by the date that you just gave would be, that would be backed up.
It was like the third episode aired.
Yeah, I really feel like, I guess the point I was going to make by saying that was that I really feel like that would work strongly to this episode's disadvantage. Like without the establishment of additional kind of character between Mal and Shepherd Book that we get in Safe, when Book nearly dies and we find out he's got some sort of security clearance with the Alliance, and also just how in Safe and Shindig specifically, we get a lot of backstory between Mal and Inara that comes into play in this episode. And I feel like a lot of that would be completely either lost or played to a disadvantage.
Yeah, it would. As I know we keep making the prisoner connection here, or connecting this to the prisoner because of the airing out of order. But like, even in a show as sort of labyrinthine or something like that as the prisoner, like very early on in the prisoner, I think, even without knowing prior to watching, I think you would be able to pick up on the fact that the episodes are airing out of chronological order. But this, for Firefly, I don't think there's really any indication towards that.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think, like, even if you hadn't told me that, which you never really outright said, oh, yeah, this is out of order, but I do think even if you hadn't brought that up, I would have picked up on the fact that the prisoner was airing out of order, because it's just, you get 4 or 5 episodes in, and it becomes so impossible for it to not be out of order.
Yeah, especially when they, repeat the number 2. They repeat, which one was it? I forget the actor's name, but it was the one from A, B.
Leo McKern.
Yeah, Leo McKern
gets repeated.
Right, and the guy from A, B, and C as well. That milk drinking guy.
Yeah, I don't remember his name because he didn't have as much of an impact on the show as Leo McKern did.
No. But yeah, Firefly makes no indication of that. I mean, probably until you get to the end of the season, you're like, wait a minute here.
Wait a minute.
Especially until you get to Serenity, like as it originally aired as the season finale.
Yeah, I feel like when you got to that episode, you'd be like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm.
Probably a similar reaction to basically Mal and the crew of Serenity in this episode when Saffron comes aboard their ship.
Yeah, I mean, before we even get there, the episode opens with a carriage being trucked across a lake and some people of indeterminate character showing up and basically being like, hey, did you think we wouldn't notice if you changed your route? You owe us everything you've got, basically.
Right.
And
I forgot about this little intro.
And obviously they stick him up and they're like, okay, you're going to give us everything you've got. And they're like, lol, no. And it's revealed that Jane is the man on the, on the carriage, basically. And there's a woman with him, and they make a couple jokes and then reveal that the woman is Mal.
Right. So Mal playing the part of like, of a wife, and then, I guess sort of foreshadowing or preempting his toilsome journey through the rest of the episode.
I think, like, after they get back to the ship, I think it's who is it? Is it Wash or Zoe, who's like, so why wasn't it Kaylee in the dress? And he's like, we needed her in the back for planning.
Oh yeah, beats me. I don't remember who said that.
And everyone kind of like looks at him skeptically when he says that. They're like, So obviously, it's done really well. The implication here is that they've been hired by this sort of town, being harangued by these bandits. And we then go into a scene where they're at the town. It's after dark. They're celebrating. There's a big party. Jane, I think Jane receives like a rain stick or something. Yeah, he gets given a rain stick and he's like, I will treasure this with my life. He's clearly drunk. Yeah, that he's being given. A sort of older man gives him this rain stick, and I don't know. Maybe I was just reading, into it things that aren't necessarily fully there or something like that. But like, was this old dude like kind of coming on to him? Is that what you got out of it? I did not get that out of this at all.
All right, never mind then. All right.
But hey, you do on. You, man. Okay, yeah, we'll just move on.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember why I thought that, but I don't remember the exact lines that made me think that was the case, but hey.
You do you, man.
My notes. Wow, I watched this days ago. I usually watch them the night before, but I watched this a couple days ago, so it's not as fresh in my memory. In my notes, my note for this is just bandits are dead party.
Yeah, so after this party, they take off and they're leaving, and Mal is packing the cargo hold and sees a woman. And he's like, yo, how did you get on my boat? Now, before we talk about the lady, I just want to mention that Mal like explicitly calls the ship his boat. I just caught me off guard because like boat? Really?
Wait, was it in this episode or another one? If it was in a different one, we didn't talk about it, where they sort of detail some old Earth myths. I think it was this one. I'm going through my notes here. Yeah.
Was it this
Yeah,
one?
it was. It was when she's talking to Wash. When Saffron was talking to Wash. We'll get there, but they go into some Earth mythology and they kind of finally give us the fact that we could have assumed before, but it's straight up said that like, you know, Earth was abandoned and nobody in this universe remembers Earth and stuff like that. Or they remember it, but they've never been there or they don't really know too much about it.
Huh.
Yeah. That's the other thing this episode does too, which has sort of these little world building moments as Saffron makes her way about or makes her way about Serenity. But anyway, yeah, this woman in the cargo hold is Saffron. And I don't know if you noticed it, but you actually do see her approach and dance with Mal at the party.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you see that scene originally, you just kind of discard it as like, you know, nothing. It's like, oh, it's just a thing.
I know it's done really well where the episode does not really telegraph that that's basically the inciting like thing.
Yeah, and like part of that is the inclusion of the scene with Jane getting the Rainmaker from the guy, because you're like, oh, you know, the fact that we're getting both of these scenes is like, oh, these are just scenes of the party, basically.
Now I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and I put it in the show notes in that episode. This is a good example of something I found called the
Kuleshov.
Yeah, the Kuleshov effect. I'll just read it straight off Wikipedia here, because why not?
Reliable source.
Yeah. The Kuleshov effect is a film editing (montage) effect demonstrated by Russian filmmaker Lev Kuleshov in the 1910s and 20s. It is a mental phenomenon by which viewers derive more meaning from the interaction of two sequential shots than from a single shot in isolation. Now, this was explicitly used in The Prisoner 2009, when they heavily hint that the mines are inside the holes, but that's not the case. And yeah, go ahead.
I was to say, that scene still trips me up because when I think about The Prisoner, I'm like, yeah, the mines are obviously in the holes, but I'm like, no, that was like obviously a film editing technique to make you think that. Yeah,
it was definitely like a very sort of, it's sort of a well-laid trap or something like that. But yeah, this example here is obviously not the Kuleshov effect. It's not two shots in order that create more meaning than is really there.
It's almost like they're using those two shots to detract meaning from the scene.
Exactly.
That by putting those two shots there, they're basically saying, oh, this is, you know, nothing important, because when you place two shots like that back to back of similar events, you're essentially implying they're of similar importance, and by including enough shots of the same thing, you actually interestingly decrease the importance of that. It's almost like the less you see, the more important it is.
Mm-hmm. And there's
in
no
movies and television,
right? And there's no real dialogue between Mal and Saffron at the party. So, like, I mean, if you just pause the episode right then and there, you would probably like think that the rain stick and the thing with Jane was really going to be more important than anything with the seemingly unnamed extra, basically. I mean, you basically view Saffron as an extra during this party. Turns out she's not, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. It's very, very interesting how this is all done. But yeah, so this woman is on the ship now, and she's like, "Hey, I'm your wife." And I think Shepard Book asks Simon if he has an encyclopedia, an almanac. And apparently this like almanac that he shows up with includes the marriage customs of this back, rim world planet that they landed on.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, they verify that, like, yeah, Mal did indeed drunkenly marry this woman according to their customs, and they're all kind of poking fun at him for it. And meanwhile, Saffron is just like bawling because Mal is like, "What? You're not my wife. Like, what's going on here? Like, you need to get off the ship." And she's just like crying her eyes out at this, and they're all sort of poking fun at Mal for it.
This isn't a Western trope, but this is a very Star Cops-esque scene.
Really?
Yeah, well, just stick with me for a second here, because, in a lot of other sci-fi shows, if they wanted information like this, they would just bring it up on the computer or like look it up on their phone or whatever. But it's very interesting because when Simon shows up with the encyclopedia/almanac, it's a physical book that Book has to flip through to find this information through. Like, they have clearly intergalactic almost, travel, because they left our solar system for another one. They have space travel on the order of like it's a regular thing, and yet to access this information, they're using like a physical book.
Right, yeah, it's sort of very advanced hardware, but maybe not like software or something like that.
And the reason why I said it was Star Cops-esque is because of that episode of Star Cops when they're like trucking loads of paper to the moon because like they've got to transport all this information to the moon.
But that is a good point. Like, Star Cops had a Box. Remember Box? The little mini computer
Box
that could like answer any of Nathan's questions. Or like, obviously Blake 7 has Zen and Slave and Orak.
Slave.
And Orak.
Always forget about Slave.
I'm not sure why I remembered Slave before Orak, but and sort of, sci-fi, various sci-fi shows and movies will have the sentient computer or like the little robot companion or computer companion, and Firefly does not. So,
or even just access to like a computer, a centralized computer system. Like, even the prisoner had like computers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the prisoner had a computer that could answer any question except one.
Yes, lest we forget the general. And yet, somehow we haven't... Well, the Alliance has computers. I think we've seen computers on the Alliance ships.
Yeah, and obviously, I think there's basically some form of computerization in Wash's cockpit there, but doesn't seem very robust.
Right. So anyway, yeah, he's married to this woman, and they're like, "Oh shit!" I just swore on the podcast because
it's 8 p.m. We usually record at like 8 a.m. Which means we're a little out of it to connect that dot there, I guess.
Yeah, just to connect the dot for the audience. Yeah, so I actually, feel kind of bad for Mal at this point because he's like, I'm not married to you and I didn't mean to get married to you. And like, this isn't obviously what I intended. And everyone's like playing this off as a joke. And Mal is like very seriously concerned and distressed. One, that like a culture just allows someone to be basically sold off or traded off like this as property. And two, that he's like married to this woman that he doesn't really know what to do with, and she runs off, and he says a line that actually made me like realize that everybody else is kind of being a dick to Mal right now, because he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to her because like it seems like her and I are the only two who don't think this is a joke.
Yeah, they're definitely like they're playing this up and kind of just kind of poking fun at him. There's something like there's something like Baudrillardian or like Derridian hidden within this too, of like or that you can, not hidden, but that you can kind of like tease out of it, of like Mal says that he is not actually married because he didn't understand and didn't intend when he went through those motions. Like, that wasn't his intention to get married. He didn't know what he was doing. Versus everyone else, in order to like kind of, you know, snicker and kind of get at him, get under his skin, is like, well, you performed the ceremony, so it means you did it. So sort of like a question of intentionality there, or something like that, or like maybe even something like what's his face's performative utterances. I forgot, Austin, J.L. Austin, I think. I don't know. Whatever. I haven't read Theory.
Yeah, I
in
wrote
like
a note
months,
here
so.
that's like, it seems really easy to scam drunk people into marriage with this custom. We didn't even explain. So the custom is that a girl or a lady or a woman will present a wreath to a man, and then, you know, if the man like dances with, like takes her hand and dances with her, then like that's it, you're married.
Yep.
If after she presents the wreath to you, it's not like you dance with a woman and you're married. If she presents a wreath and then you dance with her, then you're married.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you say it sounds really easy to sort of scam people using this, and yeah, you'd be right.
That's exactly what's happening in this episode, as we find out later.
It honestly made me wonder, we can discuss this more at the end, but like, how deep does the conspiracy go? You know, was it actually all a setup from the very beginning? Who knows? There's no answer. There is no answer.
Yeah, you know, there really is like there's no clear answer.
There's no proof that,
at least not presented in this episode.
There's no proof that even the bandits at the beginning, who seem to be causing the town some strife, like, they could have been part of this, you know? They could have been.
I mean, yes, but like, if we go that deep into it, like,
you know, it's all,
you go that deep into it, like, you know, you can say that about any episode, like, well, there's no proof.
Exactly. It was all an elaborate ruse until proven otherwise. The bandits seem to be haranguing town so that do-gooders like Mal and Jane and the rest of them would step in and get rused, to get the wool pulled over their eyes, and, you know, just sort of conned into marriage, at which point they would be robbed for all they're worth. It's exactly what's happening here. Prove me wrong. Pro tip, you can't.
Well, no, I can't. But, you know, whatever you want to take out of the episode is true.
Yeah.
If you can back it up with evidence.
Except that, yeah, I agreed up until you said that part. Forget evidence.
Forget evidence. Screw that. You don't need no evidence. Inevitable, that podcast where you don't need evidence.
Exactly. You can just make the wildest claims you want, and as long as you make them, that's fine. There's no need for proof.
As long as you make claims, You're fine. It's like, what did John Lewis say? Get into good trouble.
I don't know.
It's like his famous quote. Or make good trouble, something like that.
Anyway, Mal goes to talk with Saffron. She's upset. He is too. She's crying. He's not.
For different reasons. We should mention they're upset for different reasons.
Yeah,
she's upset because she thinks like Mal doesn't want her, which is true. And Mal's upset because he didn't agree to this marriage.
Right. He says that like they can drop her off at the next planet, find some work for her, and she's like, "Great, you're gonna sell me off as like basically a prostitute, aren't you?"
And he's like, "No."
He says
they've got farms there.
He has like the most like 11-year-old line of like, she says like a lot of the women she knew, a lot of her friends, a lot of the people she knew would get married off to like the most vile like people, and so when she got the chance to marry him, she knew that like he was a good man type thing. better than the other people she saw her friends getting married off to. But then his reaction to that is like the most. It's like the most 10-year-old, like, it's like, what kind of crappy tradition is that? Like, what a crappy planet. I don't know. It just sounds like so juvenile, his line.
He says something like, damn, what kind of planet just, like, sells off their woman, like, property like that or something like that? Yeah, but he says,
like, no, that's a crappy planet of yours or something. I don't know. It felt very kid-like. But yeah, he basically says what...
Yeah, well, it's Malcolm Reynolds. What the heck did you expect, man?
Mm-hmm. And Malcolm Reynolds, a married man. Anyway, they go into the mess hall for some female-endorsed misogyny.
if we had titles on these episodes, that would be the title.
Well, so basically, Saffron begs Mal to let her make herself useful, so she goes and makes a meal. Apparently, as we learned, for him and him alone. I think Wash and Zoe come in, and Wash tries to like take a bite, and she like basically grabs his hand before he can even, before he can even do that. And she's like, not for you type thing. Oh yeah, and then she insinuates that Zoe should make food for Wash or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and she's offended by this, understandably.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mal eats a little bit and he's like, I'm not really hungry, I've already eaten, so I'm gonna like go do captain things now.
Saffron
Bye.
Takes this personally.
She's like, how dare you?
Well, she does it in a more like passive aggressive way, right? Where she's like, sorry that it wasn't to your liking. And Mal's like, bro, like I ate everything except one bite. I'm literally just like too full. Literally just put some plastic wrap over that and save it for later.
I mean, I don't know. In some cultures, it's like very offensive to not finish all the food on your plate. So
this may be one of them. Is what you're saying here?
Yes. I was trying to remember if Chinese culture was one of the cultures where it's offensive to not finish all the food on your plate, but I genuinely can't remember. The only reason why I specifically mentioned Chinese culture is because, like, this episode, more so than the 5 before, it has, like, full lines, like, in...
Yeah, it has full lines Mandarin. Back and forth, which the previous episodes didn't.
Yeah, like, full conversations. Luckily, we have the Firefly Wiki to translate them for us.
Oh, did you look up the translation for what they were saying?
I mean, the wiki just includes them, so whenever I open the wiki for the episode, I always look to see what the translations are.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I wonder if I put on the subtitles, would it have the translation?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I know I've said before, in the past that I usually watch everything with subtitles, but I actually stopped doing that fairly recently, I guess.
Devastating.
Yeah, I just realized that, like, even when I was watching shows in English that I fully understand because they're in English, I would still, like, end up looking at the bottom, 7th of the screen, just reading instead, so I turned them off.
Yeah, that's always been my problem with subtitles, is that I always spend more time reading the subtitles than paying attention to what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm. And I'm, obviously, nothing against reading. It's just like, for a show, it's the experience of watching. Leave reading to like the books or something like that, or foreign language shows where you have to use the subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand the language.
Although I do notice it when I have subtitles on, I guess I remember more of the plot of the thing, I guess because I'm reading it in addition to experiencing it.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
So I tend to retain more of like the plot or the information of
Squid Game. Just kidding.
The medium it has.
I don't even know what Squid Game is.
It's just like a Korean television show that's like a battle royale.
Oh, really? Is that what it is? And people are going nuts over it? Huh.
Yes, there you go. I've informed you. You're officially informed.
Hell yeah. Feels good, I guess. I don't know. Not really, actually. Could have gone my whole life without knowing what Squid Game was.
Too late.
Yeah. Forbidden knowledge, can't go back.
Forbidden knowledge.
Anyway, Wash and Zoe like go into the sort of cockpit area. Yeah, you wouldn't really call it a bridge, I guess. Maybe you would. I don't know.
I would just call it the bridge.
They go there. They go to where Wash controls the ship from. And Zoe's like, there's something not right about Saffron.
Perfect.
And Wash is like, you're imagining things. That actually doesn't play out at all. It just kind of seems insinuated in hindsight.
It's mostly told through insinuation.
Well, at this point in the episode, I think we sort of see some people who are on another ship, very evidently, and who also very evidently don't have, good intentions for Mal and the rest of the crew.
No, they're like licking their lips that they're that they're gonna get a Firefly class.
Oh yeah, just going through my notes here, that's actually a little bit later. We get like more quips and sort of jokey scenes, like the one where Jane tries to trade his like most prized gun for Saffron.
Yeah, this is really funny because you think that, oh, this is it. Jane's going to make his run for the captaincy right now. He's going to kill him.
It's played out
Mal.
like he's going to attack Mal. But he actually just wants what he deems a fair trade.
Yeah.
There's another scene that is maybe funny, but maybe for different reasons, with Shepherd Book.
Yeah, we can't gloss over this.
Hell yeah, pedophilia joke. Oh god, now that's...
Pedophilia joke in my Firefly, it's more likely than you think. How did you like that reference?
I don't even know what it's a reference to.
Neither do I.
It is more likely than you think. If you asked me, even having watched the show in its entirety, like, do you think there's going to be a pedophilia joke in this show? I would have been like, probably not. No. But there is, and it's right now. So Shepherd Wash basically tells Mal that if he...
Shepherd Wash?
Shepherd Book, sorry.
Well, that's a slip.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway, yeah, go on. Shepherd Book is talking to Mal.
Basically tells Mal that if he lays a finger on Saffron, then that he's going to hell. And he says there's a special place in hell for child molesters and people who talk in the theater. Two things that don't seem on equal footing no matter how you slice it.
Yeah. I mean, I get the funny joke is supposed to be, haha, people who talk in the theater is like really bad and nobody likes it, but it feels so like off color because like...
Yeah.
Because like pedophilia is literally basically the worst thing someone can do except, I guess, murder.
It's like in the ballpark.
You could even argue that it's worse in many ways.
And it is rape, so... It's like just to a worse degree. Okay, whatever. But like, yeah, it just feels very sort of I don't know, weird.
Yes, again, feels doubly weird with the thing, with all the stuff that's come out about Joss Whedon since.
Yeah, and it feels triply weird given who says it in the show. Like, just the stereotype about pastors, And Mal's other line in this episode, like, one of these days you're going to tell us about the crimes you committed, Shepard.
Okay, you made it sound a lot more like ominous. No, it was more of I think the exact line was, one day you're going to tell us how a pastor knows so much about crime.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I was misconstruing there.
Yeah, you were construing it like that he was saying that Shepard Book had committed the crime, which, he might have, but... But that wasn't confirmed in the episode.
There's also sort of, the previous episodes hinted it, but this one more just basically comes out and all but says that, like, Inara has, like, a pretty big affinity for / crush on Mal. Because he goes to her shuttle to kind of get away from Saffron. And they have this sort of, I don't know, humorous conversation. Where she's, it's sort of, I don't know, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you got the same thing out of it, but, like, what I got out of it was that she's sort of very upset that all of this is going on, and the whole thing with the kiss later.
Yeah, she like plays it off like, oh, I'm busy and I just need to know, like, how long we're going to be on this planet we're going to. But it's so obvious that she's like, and Mal even asks, is like, are you upset because I'm married? Or are you upset because I'm getting rid of her?
And she's just like, no, neither. What would make you think that? Like, sweating bullets. But meanwhile, Saffron has decided to, sort of show her true colors, I guess. And by show her true colors, I mean try to seduce Mal.
Take off all her clothes.
Yeah. Well, so Mal goes into his room. This is the first we get, talk about the Star Cops connection. This is the first we get of Mal's room, which is a lot more spacious than Nathan's room in Star Cops. I don't know if you remember that, but remember how Nathan just had, like, a room that was only big enough to, like, lie down in? It was basically just a bed. Just a closet with a bed in it. I can hear...
Yeah, I remember the Star Cops sets were all cramped. Like, the office they were working out of was clearly just like a supply closet.
Mm-hmm. I miss that, actually, about sort of the show and that era, just the 90s era, like the sort of cramped spaces. Late 80s, early 90s. And those video rental store carpets, they're black, but they're, like, a little faded, and they have, like, weird zigzaggy designs, like a red swirl here, a green lightning bolt there type thing. Yeah, bring those back. Actually, don't. It wouldn't be the same. It would just be, like, the people who are still into, like, mid-2000s emo music, but, like, they can't fit into, like, the skinny jeans and tight shirts anymore. Anyway, I'm dragging us further and further off topic the more I keep talking, so...
We're going deep into the 90s now. How did we get here?
Well, so, yeah, Mal walks his room, finds Saffron naked in his bed, and, yeah, she just, again, her sort of passive-aggressive way, I guess, is just like, she how do we even talk about this? So she's like... she's obviously, not insisting, but not even insinuating, because it's really obvious, but she's like, yeah, so we should probably have sex, like, here and now.
But this is when she tells the whole story about how she would have picked Mal even if she hadn't been forcibly married to her. Him, well, that was a slip.
Wait, okay, so was she... Obviously, this is just, a fabrication, a story, but, like, in her backstory, was she married? Did she choose Mal, or was that, like, something that the township was like, hey, go and, like, marry this dude?
No, I think the township chose, because she says, like, she lived in their house and waited every day for them to sell her off to a man, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually what makes me think that the conspiracy to... Not conspiracy, but the plot to take Serenity, sorry, went all the way back to the original village because, like, you know, how did she? Otherwise, she was like just a plant in that village. Like, it seems sort of, you know, it seems less plausible than the other way around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it did extend that far back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. It's never really made clear. Just to reiterate.
I mean, there definitely is a line from the two guys who are like, oh, you know, that woman is like great, or like the best thing that's ever happened to us, or something like that. Clearly, you know, basically outright stating that they know her and were in cahoots with her.
Yeah, well, obviously the two guys were, but like I was just wondering about the village at the beginning. Were the two guys from the village? I don't really remember.
I don't think so.
It's my personal interpretation that they were all in on it. Maybe not the bandits at the beginning, but definitely the village that Saffron was from was in on this plan.
Yeah, I think some of them were, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you'd have to be. Anyway, Mal is like, he basically just sits down and he's like, this is really tempting, like, not gonna lie. Except he's less level-headed about it. And he's just like, but you know, a wise man once told me that there was a special place in hell for and I guess, I mean, I didn't really see it this way. Saffron seems like an adult. It doesn't seem like she's a kid, but
I think she is an adult. I thought it was implied she was an adult. The only person who seems to have made any insinuation that she's not is Book with his quite tasteless joke.
Yeah. Maybe it was just like the age gap or something like that. Which doesn't even seem too large. I don't know. Anyway, Mal is just like, well, hell yeah, let's just go for it. So, as soon as he kisses her...
Yeah, as soon as he kisses her, he's like, ah, shoot.
Yeah, he drops, I almost said he drops dead. Imagine that. Imagine if he just died here. The rest of the show goes on without him.
That'd actually make it even funnier that it was aired out of order. Like, you watch the third episode and Mal just freaking dies. And then next week, he's back alive, completely unexplained. Like, what the hell?
No, he just gets knocked out. Kiss of death type thing. Actually, don't know if that's actually the true definition of the kiss of death. What is the kiss of death? It's either a lipstick that kills people or a lipstick that shoots a bullet. I forget which. It was like wasn't it some Russian thing? I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, but I don't remember either. Like, I can't help you, unfortunately.
Just gonna Google it here. No, not the movie. It might have been called something else, not the Kiss of Death. Yeah, it was the latter. It was a lipstick that fires a bullet.
Mm.
It was a pistol used by the KGB during the Cold War. It was a single-shot pistol hidden inside a lipstick holder. Man, the Soviets developed some, like, weird stuff.
So, well, the Soviets also put people in space first, lest we forget.
Didn't they also make those, like, those knife guns? It's like a knife that can fire a bullet.
Probably. In all honesty, probably.
Yeah, I know those are...
Why kill someone in one way when you can kill them in two? I love the idea that the Soviets were just so damn bored that they just started coming up with the craziest ways to kill people that they could have. Like, what if it was a knife that shot bullets? Sergey, you genius!
It's not bullets, it's just bullet. It's just one. It only has one bullet in it.
Even better, Sergey. You absolute madman.
Or like, those aren't even the craziest things. The weirdest ones are like those. Have you seen that, like, it basically looks like a big robot caterpillar. It's like this giant mechanical, like, that's the only way I can describe it, is like a caterpillar. It's slow as hell. It looks like a big, huge, hulking Hank. It just crawls slowly along the ground.
Ah, yes. Great. By the way, Sergey is the only Russian name I can think of now. But Sergey, you absolute genius. Like motorized caterpillar. How do you come up with these things?
Yuri, Vladimir, Ivan, Sasha. Yeah, all the male Russian names that sound like female names to English-speaking ears, like Yuri and Sasha. For the longest time, I always heard, like, Yuri Gagarin, first man in space, and I was like, wait, what? Like, you mean first woman in space, right? And then I learned that Yuri is a male name.
Wow, for some reason, Yuri's always seemed like a male name to me. But yeah, Sasha, like, my friend Sasha in high school, so Alexander's is usually the nickname is Sasha in Russia, and like, so my friend in high school was Alexander, but spelled Aleksa and etc. And anyway, the damn French teacher like refused to call him Sasha. She'd always be like Alec, and he's like, my name is Sasha, and she'd be like Alec, and he's like, no, it's Sasha. And she's like, Alec, would you come help me, please? And he's like, fine. Like, he just gave up at someone. He's like, fine, he's just gonna call me Alec.
Like, don't you have to pick a French name? Like, I remember doing that too. Like, when I took Spanish, I didn't want to pick a Spanish name. I was like, just forget that. Just call me Keon. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, just call me Keon. They insisted.
No, we didn't pick a French name. And yeah, I'm not gonna get into it, but the French teacher at our high school was a really interesting person, but we're not going to go into that.
Anyway,
back to the topic at hand. Mal is down, and Saffron is running around the ship, like knocking people out. She tries to seduce, but then has to just kick in the face Wash, because he is not going to cheat on his wife. Yeah, and then she tries to seduce Inara, only for Inara to be like, "You're good," and she's like, "Yeah, well, you've clearly figured me out." And she's like, "Yeah, I figured you out." So Saffron escapes with the other shuttle, because remember that one of the shuttles is being rented to Inara.
Right.
And it's basically her home.
Two interesting things that happen during this sequence where Saffron is knocking people out. First, she has this like little conversation with Mal before the scene in his room, where we learn a little bit more about Mal's backstory. He talks about how he was raised by his mother and like 40 other farmhands or whatever on a farm, raised cattle. So, you kind of get the impression that Mal is maybe from more of an affluent background, or like and definitely, obviously has the farming background as well. In a universe where food seems to be like the big, right? That's really all we get of that, though. I completely forgot about that aspect to his character, actually. But then we also get, during the conversation with Wash, he details a bit of his background, how, like, he says, like, he has an interesting line. He says, like, the people back home where he was from, he always, what was it? He talks about the people he knew in his earlier days, but then he also says, like, sometimes I think that the only reason I became a pilot was to see the stars and, like, just see if there was a sky up there in the first place, because my planet was so polluted you couldn't even see the stars in the sky. So that's a bit of his backstory there.
Yeah, a little sprinkling of Mal for your day.
And Wash.
Anyway, Inara finds Mal on the floor, half dying, and calls Simon, and then we like cut to she kisses Mal to try to wake him up, and then she's like, "Oh, you idiot," and she collapses.
Strong poison.
Yeah. But we cut to Mal waking up, and he's like, "Oh, what happened?" And they're like, "You were poisoned." And Simon's like, "No, you don't look so good." She's like, "I'm fine. I'm just over here. I'm fine, relaxing, comfortable." And everyone's like, "Okay."
Yeah, nobody has any idea that she, like, kissed slash CP tried to CPR Mal, and she's just letting it slip like on her own. There's no prompting this whatsoever, and she's just kind of tripping all over the place. I think
everyone kind of just brushes this aside because they have the more like immediate problem that their ship has been hijacked and is on an unplotted automated course to somewhere
to
unknown.
Sudden death. Yeah, and I know nobody cares about what Inara is like kind of saying, and she's just kind of, still tripping over it. But like, yeah, they're basically on this collision course with this this sort of machine, this spaceship-sized machine that is going to ensnare them.
Yeah, they call it a net, but it looks more like a giant bear trap made of tasers.
Yeah, with like some electricity stuff running, through it. It's a very poor description on my part. But
close enough. I'll give it to you.
So basically, Saffron sabotaged the ship. At this point, the plan, if it wasn't already clear, comes fully into focus. She tricked them. The people on the other ship were in league with her. They're going to take Serenity and sell it or do whatever they want with it.
Yeah, unclear. They do mention something like, oh, those Firefly classes, they can run forever if you have an engineer worth it, like even half worth their salt.
I guess they don't know that Kaylee, an engineer half worth their salt, is on or her salt, I guess, is on the ship because this plan entails killing everyone inside, which is why Saffron books it out of there as soon as she can. Right. So as soon as they go through this sort of trap, they're all going to die, is the point.
Yeah, I'm actually a little unclear about exactly how they get out of this, but they like go out onto the ship in spacesuits, and
Jane just like snipes a certain point on the.
They just shoot someone
net.
With the gun that he was gonna do a thing with earlier.
Yeah, which destabilizes it, basically destroys it.
And that's it. And then we like smash cut to farm in like snowy wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And Mal shows up and Saffron is there as we discover he's hunted down Saffron.
Yeah, imagine if this is like years later.
This takes place like after the rest of the series.
Post Serenity. The movie. This is like 30 years after the rest of the series. No, we don't know how much time it's been. It is actually the jarring and sudden cut to it is actually sort of it's I don't know if you had the same reaction, but I was like, wait, what? Like, what's this doing here? This almost seems it's not, but it almost feels non sequitur-ish,
It feels non sequitur-ish when they cut to it, because you're like, where are we? What is this? But then as soon as Saffron's revealed, you're like, we're closing up, open plot threads. Wow, I completely butchered what I wanted to say there.
I got you. Yeah. And this is the scene where it all, comes thematically together. Again, like I said before, maybe a little didactically. Mal has Saffron at gunpoint, and she basically he's sort of like, you're a bad woman, Saffron, and she's like, you can't judge me. That's all we do, Mal. All we do is play each other in this life.
I mean, thankfully they also answer the question that I had, which is like, how did you even find her? Because she's like, how did you even find me? And he's like, oh, that shuttle only had like a day's worth of fuel, and this was like one of 3 planets that were within range.
Mm-hmm. I forgot about that. So she, correctly assumes that Mal isn't going to do anything to her. He does. He relents. But he gets his final word in. He's like, the whole reason we prevailed as a crew is, precisely the opposite of what you're saying. It's that we did have this immense and sort of unconditional trust in one another. And in you, in a way. He doesn't say that, but like that's what's insinuated, or that's what's kind of indicating, is like we have this trust in you.
Mm-hmm. And it's unclear whether or not they kill her or not, because it ends with him like.
Well, he just like
knocking
Falcon
her
punches
out.
her, and I would be very surprised if this was meant to like be him killing her. I mean, I think that would sort of detract from everything here.
It could be like those guys who like punch someone in a fight, and then the person just dies because they punched them like right at the exact instant when their heart wasn't pumping, so it like stopped their heart from pumping. Yeah, you can do that. You can kill someone with one punch if you punch them at like the most inopportune time for both.
There's a
of
lot
you.
of ways to kill someone with a punch. Like you could just knock them flat and they like hit their head in the wrong way and die. You could hit their chin and they bite their tongue off and die. Yeah, probably other ways too.
So what we're saying is don't punch people. Anyway, that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, obviously having watched the show before and having the memories of this episode come flooding back towards the beginning of it, I knew that Saffron was not genuine. But I wanted to ask if you did. Were you on to her? Were you suspicious, or did this take you by surprise?
No, I actually wasn't onto her. I really, really thought that the plot of this episode was going to be about figuring out what to do with Saffron. I even have a note here that's like, okay, my prediction is like, some other plot will happen and then like Saffron will die.
Whoa.
And that'll resolve the question of like, well, what do we do with her now? So I really wasn't onto her at all.
Fridging her, I guess. Have you heard that term, fridging?
Yes.
It's like, I guess for people in the audience or listeners who don't know, it's if I recall correctly, it's like it means like unceremonious killing off a female character. It's sort of this, I don't know, like critically inept or media illiterate like thing or way of interpreting a story or something like that, in my opinion. In my correct opinion. But yeah, no, that's not the direction this episode goes in at all, and it's maybe more interesting for it, I think. I don't think I would have enjoyed sitting through another 20 minutes of marital strife more than I would have enjoyed sitting through what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Even still, this is maybe like, I know I said it's the most thematically interesting, but it's also in a way like the most thematically boring, or just maybe the most boring, like in general. It's a very paradoxical, like dual-natured episode.
There's a lot going on, but we've had inklings of this before, but there's a lot going on with Mal, and specifically between Mal and Inara, and Mal and Book, and the interplay between the, I guess, religiosity of Book versus the kind of carefreedness of Inara. The free-spiritedness is actually what I want to say of Inara, and how Mal kind of, interestingly, Mal seems to be opposed to both of these. Mal is obviously very anti-religion, but he also happens to be, or interestingly, is also like very anti-Inara, while still drawing, parallels between both of them. This episode also kind of deals with how both Book and Inara, even though their moral codes seem to be in opposition to each other, actually both live by their own very strict rules. Book lives by the Bible, the book, whereas Inara lives by what's been indicated before, but what she kind of implies more directly in this episode is like a very strict code of like what you're allowed to do and not as a companion. So that even though they're both in opposition to each other, they have their own strict rules to follow, and it's interesting how they've placed Mal as being. It's not necessarily a spectrum from Inara to Book, but how Mal
How
appears
he
to be
pisses
kind
off
in
both of
between
them.
and yet opposed. Yeah, and yet opposed to both of them. And this episode, I think, is the one that most directly deals with all of that. Especially, when Saffron, Mal tells Inara, like, oh, Saffron said, like, she would never want to be a companion. And actually, when Saffron said that, I thought that was very interesting and possibly should have been a giveaway that she was a fraud, because in this universe, we've already been shown that companions have a lot of power. And it's like a very lucrative position to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Inara is definitely a very interesting character. I think she's probably my favorite character so far, at least.
She's the one with the most. I think she's the most unique, I guess. Like, she's the one who doesn't have a direct analog in pretty much any other television show.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. It's like, I can't think of any real character who is like Inara. Which is, like, very... that in itself is a very unique thing, to, like, be such a unique character, Mm-hmm. We actually forgot how this episode really ends, which is that Mal... he's trying to tease out of Inara what actually happened, and she's like... She finally admits that she, like, passed out from the lipstick poison thing. And he just goes, I knew you kissed Saffron, like, totally missing what she just revealed.
Yeah, love how obtuse, oblivious that Mal is. Or maybe he, maybe I'm giving Mal too much credit by saying this, but maybe Mal is allowing Inara to save some face. Maybe he knows that she kissed him and he's just, like, giving her an out.
Yeah, I doubt that somehow. But maybe.
I don't doubt that, because in Safe, he, like, directly implies that we're not safe. In Shindig, we have kind of almost the inversion of this plot, where in this episode, Mal is the one who's married and Inara is kind of jealous. In Shindig, we have the exact opposite, and Mal definitely implies / states almost that he has feelings for Inara and, like, isn't pleased with her choice of man.
Yep.
And I don't think he's that oblivious,
Maybe, but at the same time, he was knocked out cold, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about, I guess. I don't know if you have anything else you want to talk about before we get into Wild West tropes.
No, I actually did, but I'm blanking on it, unfortunately, so... And I didn't write it down, so we'll just move on, I guess.
Yeah, well, the only, like, Wild West trope I could think of was, like, the raid on the carriage at the beginning, which even Doctor Who did Doctor Who even kind of did a play on this in the Woman Who Lived, yeah. The second part of the Ashildr / Me storyline.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a very Wild West trope, robbing the caravan, of people transporting supplies, or just people leaving, basically, just going out west.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't have any other ones other than that.
Like I said earlier, the fact that they're using a book almanac instead of, like, a computer is not necessarily a Wild West / Western trope, but does provide an interesting insight into how they're adapting these Western concepts into this sci-fi setting. Let's see. I guess that takes us into America's 10 Actors.
More like...
Unless you would like to hear some of these interesting translations of the Mandarin.
Well, yeah, sure. Why not? Because I haven't heard them either. Yeah, forget the listeners. I haven't heard them, so no, I'm just kidding.
Maybe this should be a segment. Although I'm not. I'm going to admit that I'm not going to attempt to say the Mandarin.
No, by all means, skip over that.
So like when Jane proposes the trade his gun for Saffron, Mal's response is a long line that translates to the explosive diarrhea of an elephant. Let's see. The next one here is the next one that's interesting is Wash. When Saffron tries to seduce him, he kind of curses out a long line that translates to "Mother of God and all her wacky nephews."
Mm-hmm.
The line that Zoe says when she says, Wash would never fall for her, and then she calls Saffron a word that means cheap floozy. And those are the only real interesting ones.
Good to know.
Anyway, so I have the honor of looking up the only actor/actress of note this week, Christina Hendricks, a name that I recognize, although I don't know where from. She's been in a couple things that I've watched. So she's in Solar Opposites, which is a TV show on Hulu. Toy Story 4, she voiced Gabby. Tin Star, The Romanovs, Robot Chicken. She was in one episode of Robot Chicken. A movie called The Neon Demon, Zoolander 2. She was in an episode of Rick and Morty. She had a recurring role, or a main role, it looks like, on Mad Men. She was in an episode of American Dad. Life, a TV show whose name I recognize, although I don't know why. Las Vegas, another TV show whose name I recognize, but I don't know why. She had a recurring role on ER. Angel, another Joss Whedon property, probably where Joss Whedon met her. And that's pretty much everything that I recognized. She apparently, according to this, according to IMDb, like returns in another episode.
Oh, really?
Later on.
Well, that's interesting. Guess we have that to look forward to. ?
So perhaps her character will be expounded in that episode.
Perhaps. Or maybe she'll just stagnate and be the same person.
The lack of character development, alas. You never know with these television
that's okay.
shows.
You need good static characters.
Yeah, that's true. You need a couple of those, I guess, to really underscore everybody else's character development. All right, so we got an email this week from Steven. Subject Firefly Safe. Hey guys, the High School Musical talk was pretty funny. Maybe there is a sign Triple Play should do a High School Musical trilogy episode. I don't know. Whatever you guys feel like. I agree that it pretty much feels like a remake of Grease, but would like to point out that the overall concept of the son doing a school activity the dad and friends from sports don't really approve of was previously used in Disney Channel original movie Eddie's $1 Million Cook-Off. Eddie's dad, the coach of the baseball team, is actually the same actor who played Mr. Fulton in High School Musical 2. I'm actually kind of sad that High School Musical overshadowed this classic film. Anyone with Disney Plus should give it a spin. As much as I enjoyed some of the sweet On Deck, I disagree with Dylan's assertion that it's better than The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. On Deck was essentially a Jumping the Shark spin-off. Throwback to when we discussed Jumping the Shark on the K9 Timequake episode of Delayed Replay, I guess. Yes, there were moments in the first Sweet Life show that got very ridiculous, like when Zack and Cody became superheroes and went back in time and saw dinosaurs. Jumping the Shark moments for sure, but I feel that On Deck had much more of those Jumping the Shark moments. Let's not forget the Sweet Life movie, in which a mad scientist tries merging Zack and Cody together to make one brain. Anyway, just wanted to throw in my 2 cents about stuff that probably not many people... And it just ends, mid-sentence. Steven, are you okay? Steven! No, actually, I just texted Steven and went, Steven, are you aware that your email ended just in the middle of a sentence? And he's like, wait, what? So he said, this is what it was supposed to say. Anyway, just wanted to throw in my 2 cents about stuff that probably not many people care about. Cheers, Steven. So for those of you, for the 10 seconds right there who were worried something had happened to Steven, rest assured, he's okay.
Just pressed send too early, probably.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before. Once upon a time, there was a moment when Google, or maybe it was like my mail client, I don't know, there was a very short span of time where like if you hit enter, it would just send the email. And I'd be like, what?
Well, now Gmail, I don't know if other contemporary mail clients do this, or web-based ones or whatever, but like now Gmail, like it lets you recall the email. Like it doesn't send it right away. It's like you have like maybe 20, 30 seconds to recall it right after you send it.
Yeah, I went into the Google Mail settings and I set that. I set that like you could change the time period that you can recall the email, and I set it to the max just in case.
What is the max? For like a minute or two?
Like a minute, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a minute.
Well, thanks for your email, Stephen. As someone who never really got into the to most Disney, I was never really into like those Disney sitcoms that were kind of big when we were growing up. So just hearing vicariously what actually happened on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody is a real trip. I thought it was just like two kids living in a hotel.
I mean, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody definitely was just two kids living in a hotel doing things, I guess. There was often subplots about their mom dating people in the hotel.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, thanks for emailing us, Stephen. We don't need to go into The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody here. But The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody cinematic universe. I mean...
There probably is like a large Disney Channel cinematic universe, considering I'm pretty sure a lot of those shows crossed over with one another. Could be wrong about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. A lot of them did cross over with each other.
That was such a period, like... It was definitely like a period in time, right? Of like... It was the perfect like storm of like, I don't know, cable television at its peak, like the early 2000s. For those just to sort of arise. Maybe they still make them and put them on streaming services. I don't know. But
I don't know. I think Disney still makes them.
I don't even know I can't even name any of the other ones besides The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. But whatever.
Victorious.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
That concludes the episode. So... If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on our Mrs. Reynolds. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, and next time we're watching another episode with a character's name in it, Jamestown. But until then, the end.